Hello, I'm Daniel Hines with Steiner Books, and I'm here today with author Robyn Brown to talk with her about her book, A Practical Guide to Curative Education. Robyn, what can readers expect to find in this book?
Well, anybody who's tried to read a Steiner book would know that Rudolf Steiner is not known for his accessibility. And to read a Steiner book, you really have to read it more than once. You have to live into it over a long period of time. And the contents of the book, Curative Education, the 12 lectures that Steiner gave, is something I've been working with now for close to 20 years. And over the course of that time, it slowly began to clarify itself to me.
Okay.
And so the book is really an attempt, as the title says, to make the contents of the curative course accessible to people who need to read it, like teachers and parents. I tried to find a path through the contents of curative education that went in a kind of a logical manner. I used the 7 life processes as a framework.
Okay.
And tried to create something that every teacher and parent could relate to, describe situations that I've observed in classrooms. Nothing is specific, but it's an amalgam of things I've really observed in classrooms, so that the teachers and parents who pick up the book might come away feeling empowered and feeling like this mystery of what Steiner's trying to say in the 12 curative lectures is something that they can really understand and begin to work with in their classrooms. Okay.
That sounds like a very interesting book and an interesting approach. Can you tell me something, maybe a little bit about your process? How did this book come to be?
Truthfully, it wrote itself. I set myself the task of writing a chapter a month, and I wrote a chapter a month, and there it was. It came out of, I'm invited a lot to observe in classrooms. I speak with a lot of teachers and mentor teachers and give courses to teachers, and so it's something that lived in me for a long time. The contents of it, what I observed, what I had spoken to people about. And once I sat down to write it, it really didn't take very long, and it wasn't very difficult.
Right, so you were encapsulating, if you will, a lifetime's worth, or at least several decades worth of experience?
Yeah, it's the result of having done my homework.
I'm just curious if you could give us just one brief example of, for example, maybe something you observed or kind of an amalgam of patterns in a student, and how you handled that in the book, so readers should get a kind of a sense for what to expect if they open it up.
In terms of the difficulties that the teachers might have?
Like, for example, give a presentation of symptoms, and then how the book works with that, or explains it, or frames it.
Well, what I would say is that when I first started teaching close to 30 years ago, there was maybe 1 or 2 students in every classroom who obviously needed more support than most class teachers were able to give. And now when I go in and observe classrooms, it's more like a third to a half could really benefit by what Steiner is talking about. And what you see is that the old paradigms aren't working in the ways they used to. And as pedagogical teachers, we're trained to look at the children through the eyes of the temperaments. And in curative education, we're really looking at something else that needs a different understanding, what Steiner refers to as the curative polarities. So you see children who really are not thriving and being very successful in the big class. It's very difficult for them to be at their desk. They're often incredibly bright children, but it's very hard for them to complete their work, know where to start their work. And so the children are very frustrated. And they have various and many ways of expressing that frustration. And you know, some of them express it through fairly aggressive outbursts and behavior that's difficult to handle in a large class. And some of them express it by getting very internalized and remote and collapsing inside of themselves. But what you're seeing is children who are not able to do the work at grade level, are not able to be successful on the playground socially, and emotionally are really under a lot of stress.
I think most teachers can relate to students in their experience they've seen with this, so this book will then give them practical and an orientation as well as practical steps for dealing with such students.
And the book really follows a logical path of first learning how to observe what you're seeing, and then learning how to understand what you're seeing, and lastly, what to do, and how to learn what to do out of your own volition, because nobody should do it just because anybody said
off
so.
a checklist or something.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a very interesting and very helpful practical book. Thank you, Robyn, for taking the time speaking with us.
Thank you.